All right, hello there, folks. Today we're going to do another Foundry, and this week we're going to be talking about the issue of colleges. So, a lot of people in this current generation are being told from a very young age, you're going to go to college, Jimmy. And for some people, that's, all well, fine, and dandy, but a lot of people, they end up getting into a lot of debt that they really don't need. Like, I think I was reading some articles today, and it's up to like $1.2 trillion dollars. And that might just be for millennials, but I know it's for some population. It's either millennials or everyone, but either way, $1 trillion, that's a lot of money. I mean, we could build a fantastic border wall for that price. So this is a major issue. And it's caused by a number of sub issues, and the first is the fact that student loan debt is subsidized by the government. So the government will guarantee a very large amount of loans to students, even if they take BS majors in many cases. So I forget the exact statistics, but they don't really do a good job discriminating against majors, which they should. Like if you get a degree in social services, mid careers you're gonna be expected to make 50 grand a year, which is nothing. And if you have a student loan amount of $100,000, which is not out of the ordinary, and this becomes a big issue to deal with. So I think to solve the student, just the college question, this requires a number of different sort of methods, sort of approaches. So one thing that I was suggesting is ending the legal process where you can't get rid of student loans. If you get divorced and you can, no, that's not divorce. If you get, pretty much any other form of debt other than I think child support, you can get just thrown out if you declare bankruptcy. However, student loans, you can't get rid of it like that, which is a major issue. If you just do literally anything else, if you take out a faulty car loan, that can get wiped off if you go into bankruptcy, which is not a fun process, but it's there so that you can do something about this debt. But for student loans, you can't. So I would repeal the act that allows this, because what happens is these lenders, they go out there and they realize that they'll basically get their money back some way or another. They're going to find you and they're going to get you. So that's one method to deal with this. But other sort of thing is how many people really need these college degrees to do their job? Now, I know, when I was in my internship, the only real reason, I could have probably done most of the stuff in my internship straight out of high school, especially if you're in, the sort of computer, programming and whatnot. You can do most of these things with some self-study. I know people who work at my job who, they learned how to program right off the internet. They weren't, a computer science major, but they learned how to program, and they learned how to program well by, by doing things on the internet, doing research, doing their own projects and learning. And they even have, I know for coding at least, they have alternatives to college in the form of these tech boot camps. And I've looked into a few of them, and they'll promise somewhere between $40,000 and $60,000, starting salary, once you finish their academy or whatever they call it. And it's usually a 12-week to it's either 12 weeks to 1 year intensive course. That's why they call it a boot camp. And you'll be working, 50 hours. And I think they have an internship in at least some of these built into the program. So, that's pretty efficient. And the prices, now they have a couple options. Some of them will just go and take it from your pay once you get hired. Instead of paying up front, you end up paying maybe a small down payment. And then once you graduate, they'll deduct the money from your pay for I don't know, a year or so. And I know some other ones, they just have straight up monetary fees, so you'll pay 20 grand. But when you consider the fact that the average student graduates with over 30 grand in debt, and not only that, but 4 years of their lives get sort of, it's an opportunity cost where they could be working a well-paying job and they're not. You have to factor that into it. So it is a That's definitely an issue right there. And another thing is like I think a lot of this is caused by human resources departments, like within companies, especially within like big companies. If you got like a small startup, they're probably not really going to care as long as you can do your job, what degree you have. If they know that you can do the job, they'll probably hire you. But all these big companies, they have these human resources departments so that they can like hire people without like it is a very difficult thing if you want to go and hire lots of people with a business. So you have people, full-time employees that just go and hire people, and they go and look for, oh, we need the most well-qualified person to do the job, which is, it's good when you think about it, but like you have to go and consider the prices too. Like if there's a candidate who went to a 4-year degree, he's probably going to, like for programming, he's probably going to expect to at least make like, 50, 60 grand starting out, maybe more than that, maybe less. It really depends on a number of factors. Now, if you get somebody who did not go to college, they'd probably be willing to go and take like 40 grand a year, just because they don't have these massive student loans they have to go and take care of. And it's good. It's another thing too, is like a lot of people, like especially millennials and I guess Gen Z, I keep seeing these articles pop up and they're like, oh, well, millennials aren't having sex, they aren't having families, they aren't having kids. Well, a lot of the reason, not all the reason, but there's probably a sizable portion of the reason that they're not having families as early as previous generations is because like it's a little bit hard to go and have a family when, you're in college. Like I know like a lot of Mormons, they actually do that, but they're the exception, not the norm. Like it's very rare to go and see people with like a husband and a wife within college. They're very rare because it's just stressful. And the college situation, like the whole idea of college is kind of like it kind of infantilizes people. If you think about it, it's just like an extension of a high school experience. It's like, it's high school 2.0, but instead of like, at least in many cases, if you go to these big universities away from home, instead of like going to regular school, it's more like Hogwarts, but instead of magic, you just get like, drunk and maybe an STD or an abortion.
Not in my case.
Oh yeah, like it's just you end up getting these experiences, which college experience is kind of interesting, but if I could get away without it, the only real thing that I would miss from like the college experience is the networking opportunities, and honestly, I did not utilize that to the best of my skills. Partially because I think my dad was like, oh, you need to be concentrating on your schoolwork, but honestly, that doesn't really matter that much. As long as you get like a decent GPA, like above a 3.0, you'll be fine finding a job somewhere, unless you like really want to go into grad school and do something else. And grad school is its own thing. I don't know how I feel about that for like many degrees, because it's just like more and more expense. And that's what's becoming now. It's like, oh, so everyone's got a college degree, so now we have to go and have you get like a graduate degree. And then it's get a master's degree. You get this degree, you get that degree, because that's what people are doing now to differentiate themselves. And all it's doing is hurting themselves when they just take these degrees. And honestly, I don't think it makes people that much smarter, especially in like tech, when you'd be much better on the job learning stuff firsthand than like reading a book about tech that by the time it's published and edited, it's probably going to be a few years out of date. Like there's not really that many good books probably on like the cutting edge of like machine learning or what have you. Like you'll find more of that just by doing experience and looking it up on the internet than by like reading a college textbook. And I guess like the only real thing that colleges really do well is like it kind of teaches you how to learn more, but that's the purpose of high school, I guess, kind of. I mean, we already talked about the purpose of high school beforehand, but like college, in my opinion, college should be aimed at getting you a job. That's the purpose of college, at least in my opinion. Or either getting a job or going to grad school. That should be one of the two, because like, if you take a degree in political science, for instance, you're not going to get a good paying job right out of high school. You got to go to grad school if you want to like make any sort of money. Now, this is becoming a big issue too, because it puts especially poor parents in these really bad situations. Like they want the best for their kid, and the media, they keep saying, you need to go to college, you need to go to college. And then they feel like they're bad parents if they can't afford to send their kid to university for 4 years. And you can't even get and no one even talks about associate's degrees anymore, because that's basically like a high school degree, equivalent, like maybe 20 years ago. So it's now like everyone needs to get a bachelor's at least. And this is becoming an issue, especially when you consider the fact that colleges are vastly populated by ultra-leftist professors who will try to go and brainwash your kids. And with public education, K through 12, they have laws against them saying flat-out propaganda. Now some of it still gets through, but what they got in colleges, they can get away with so much more of that because it's not as regulated. So I think, in that regard, they need to do some sort of regulation, at least in my opinion. I'm really against regulation, but I think if my taxpayer money is going to go into this university, they should at least try to be value neutral in most of their arguments, because I've seen just some lunatic leftist professors who in some cases, whether or not they'll say it, and they're like, oh, you can't prove that, they will generally discriminate against conservative viewpoints, and they will try to go and instill a particular mindset on these students. And you'll see that everywhere. It's everyone has to be this sort of cookie cutter leftist person. Oh, diversity is our greatest strength, and this and that. And if you're not, pro gay marriage, and you're an evil racist bigot. If you vote for Trump, you're an evil racist bigot. And that's what you're being taught in high school. You're signing your soul away. It's like a Faustian bargain. If kids are too young to be able to go and buy guns, they want you to be 21 to buy a gun, why can you be 18 and sign, the next 20 years of your job paying off, of your life paying off student loans? How does that make any sense? That probably kills more people than guns do, just in suicides and, failures to have kids and abortions because they can't afford kids. At least that's kind of what I'm seeing. And another thing too is the high schools kind of play into this because they don't do a good enough job in teaching, getting people ready for non-college related careers. They need to go in colleges. You should really know what you want to do by the time you go to college. It shouldn't be oh, I don't know what I want to do. That's a major problem going to college. If you don't know what you want to do going into college, or at least have a damn good idea, at least a field, you should probably not go to college, because if you don't know what you want to do, you'll end up taking a bunch of BS classes for a couple years, and then when they force you to choose your major, then you'll just pick whatever you can get. Especially in some colleges, because they'll force you to go and declare a major after a certain period of time, which, and if you don't declare, they'll lock you out of majors, which I think that's BS. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. That's a bait and switch tactic. So you pay good money to go to this university, and then you can't even get a degree that'll make any money because you didn't declare your major early enough. If you're willing to go and pay the money, you should be able to go and take whatever damn major you want to go and take, as long as you get the minimum GPA requirement and you took the required courses to enter that major. At least that's my opinion on that. The only reason I see them doing that is so that you spend more money trying to go and get back into that major. Because at least I think they may have changed the laws recently. I'm not sure, but colleges want you to come in without an idea of what you want to do, because then you spend more time just sitting there with your thumb up your ass trying to go and pick a major. And the longer that you're in college, no matter what major you're in, the colleges are getting money, and they may or may not be, we're this sort of government funded, we're educational, we're nonprofit. Bullshit. Look at the prices. Look at the prices of these universities anymore. It's absolutely astronomical, especially for public ones Pitt. It's incredibly high. Penn State, incredibly high.
Penn State's the second most expensive public school in the country, I believe.
I think Pitt's number one. And then they'll go and complain, oh, we need to go and have the state fund us more. I think the state's funding Penn State $10,000 per student. So when you get like when you're paying $10,000 per semester, it's really like 20 grand a semester that you're effectively paying into it. And honestly, I don't think you're really getting all that much out of it for that sort of money. And there's no reason right now for them to go and want to like decrease this cost because they'll keep getting student loans because the government more or less guarantees it. And even if you like take the private ones, they still like have all these guarantees so that the private companies, they'll just keep loaning you money. And I think that's going to be the next big like the next big crisis. Like we had the housing crisis of the 2008s and this 1 point, whatever $1 trillion student loan debt. I think that's going to end up popping. And that's going to make it so that like, when people can't pay up because they were told that, you can take these, you can go to college for this, even though your parents don't have the money for it and you don't have the money for it. And then, and you're taking a bullshit degree, then you're not really going to get anywhere. Like that's the number one thing. If you're a kid who's listening to this, considering college, know what you're signing up for. Don't take a major that won't be able to go and like make up the cost of your education. And I don't really know the exact formula for that, but like I know if you go to an Ivy League school to become a school teacher or like I don't know, like it's like a sociologist or a I don't know, like African studies major, you're probably not going to make that money back. And I think they should have a law where like if you do take this, this major that you'll never be able to go and pay off, especially considering the fact that like there's an interest rate. Like if you get through the government, it's usually pretty normal. It's like maybe like 2%, 3%, 4%, maybe in 5%. But if you go through like Sallie Mae, they have like 10% interest rate student loans, which is like ridiculous. Because after 10 years, that'll double, and if you fail to make payments, they can increase that. So you'll end up with like going to college for 4 years and end up spending like maybe 20, 30 years paying back these student loans because this interest rate creeps up on you. And if you're out of college, and you can afford to, I'd put more money down that student loan, especially if it's a high interest rate one, because like you might just end up paying off the interest instead of like the actual principal. And that's why you end up like hovering around the student loan for years with this shadow over your head. And you'll be afraid to go and start a family and get on with your life. And then on top of that, then they want you to go to grad school afterwards and just start the whole process over again. And it's even more expensive for grad school, like per, semester you're over there, because they can charge whatever they want to charge. Even though honestly, it's probably easier than like, some of the stuff they have to go and do in undergrad, because when you're like a master's degree, you get more responsibilities. And like, especially like if you're going like PhD, I guess that's why they pay some of them. Like you more or less do your own research. Like you're actually providing a product, but it still costs you money in many cases. So like that confused the shit out of me. But that's something that I see over here. And the first thing we need to go and do is just stop instilling in our kids that the only way you can be successful is to go to college, because it's not. They have many like career options that don't require a 4-year degree. Like I know right now there's a huge crisis in being a trucker, like a huge crisis. And they start out like I think over 50 grand starting out as a truck driver. That's good money. That's, some people graduate with college degrees that make less than a truck driver that just needs a CDL. And companies will pay you to get those CDLs because they need them. Because no one wants to be a truck driver right now. Is that going to be a job that will last forever?
Nope.
I don't know. But if I was you, I'd go and spend, a few years trucking. And then if, the sky falls and you end up having to go and like leave the industry, then you have that money saved up, because if you're a trucker, you don't have to go and buy a house. You get there's a lot of things you don't have to go and pay for, and you can go and save up that money. Were you saying something?
Oh no, I was just saying no to the trucking thing. That's not going to last forever because of autonomous technology. But I'll give my 2 cents on the college thing. So my situation is a little more unique from Mr. Alex's here, because I went into college not knowing. I had zero idea of what I was going to do. I mean, zero. Like, nothing. Because throughout middle school, high school, like, to be honest, like, I always got good grades in school, but I really wasn't interested in most of the things they taught us. And I slowly developed an interest in English, actually, and I really liked writing and, sort of doing creative writing, stuff like that. Partially because I had a really awesome teacher in high school. But Cause I'm trying to think other subjects, math, science, hated, history, didn't really like. Gym class didn't really like that either, to be honest. I just didn't like school that much. So, I mean, I didn't mind, I didn't hate it, but so going into college was a unique thing for me because I was, I knew, again, I also knew nothing about college, keep in mind, because yeah, I got there. I didn't even know drinking culture was a thing in college. That's how little I knew. But I discovered that was a thing pretty quickly. And I started out just taking classes that, catered toward my interests. So I was interested in reading, writing, graphic design. I was interested in philosophy a bit. I was interested in film. That's another thing. Film was a big interest of mine, and or still is. And so I took some classes in that, and I basically A/B tested stuff. So, like, I took, for example, last year a film class that basically taught you the basics of filmmaking, and you shot 5-minute movies. I shot, 4 little movies, then made a documentary, and then a narrative film. And I really enjoyed that. Like, it was a lot of fun doing that sort of thing because what was nice about a big school like that I went to is that you had the resources to do these things. You had the cameras, the lighting, all the equipment so you could learn this stuff, understand, see if you liked it and all that. But it was a lot of work, and I thought, I tend to be in more of the creative realm of stuff, and I was afraid if I went into something like this, I could definitely do it. I could still do it now. If I lose a job with something in the future, I could pick it up and do it. But I probably wouldn't like, putting creativity on an assembly line and forcing it on myself. I don't. That's not an environment I like working in. But regardless, the moral of the story is college is a great way to test out if you're going to like something or not without going out into the real world doing it. Now, it's expensive, as we've talked about, to do that. And it can be good for someone like myself that doesn't know what he or she's going to do with, my future. So I eventually, after all this sort of testing, I came to the conclusion that I wanted to do marketing or advertising is technically what my major is. And, what's ironic is I came about that not through anything really that I did in school. I will tell everyone listening that the biggest lesson I learned through college, like the biggest lesson I learned, is to get involved with clubs and to explore your interests outside the classroom. I guess that's a general way to put it. Explore your interests outside the classroom. So join clubs that you're interested in. I joined some political clubs. I joined a movie club. I joined a bunch of other little clubs. And I've also read stuff online every day. I watch YouTube videos. I mean, I watch YouTube all the time. I have so many channels I'm subscribed to. And through basically two main people, I honed in my interests and discovered what I wanted to do basically with my life, or at least a chapter of my life through a college degree. And those two people are Donald J. Trump and Scott Adams. We all know who Trump is. And anybody that doesn't know who Scott Adams is, he is the creator of the Dilbert cartoons, but he's also a trained hypnotist and trained persuader. He analyzed Trump and basically showed how persuasive he is and what techniques he uses that other people weren't coming up with. And so he talks about basically just how Trump's a really good marketer, using these sort of techniques of public speaking. And I've always had an interest in public speaking and communication in general. So I learned through what Trump was doing and saying during his presidential campaign and Scott Adams' analysis of it that I'm interested in marketing. I'm interested in communicating to people to try to sell them an idea or a product. And then, of course, I then took a marketing class in college to see if I was interested. And I enjoyed the class. Teacher was really cool, and I got a good enough grade in it. But it didn't really teach me much of anything. That's the thing that's, I'll say is that if you really want to figure out your interests, college is not necessarily the best way because that classroom experience taught me some of the things, like a few of the things that Scott Adams and Trump uh, talk about in terms of marketing. But I would not have known anything about marketing and all that if I hadn't listened to Scott Adams and Trump. Those, outside resources will teach you and tell you the most about yourself and show you what you're really interested in. And you might as well take those classes to see if you can deal with it for the next 4 years of your college career, life, and then of course your career after that. But my point is that you gotta explore your interests on your own. You can't rely on the classroom setting. Um,
Well,
yeah, you want to add something to that?
well, here's the thing too that like I heard you mention like it's like Scott Adams and Trump, and like you probably is college necessarily the best place to go and like get exposure to these people because you probably could have got exposure to it. You
Well,
know,
yeah, I knew about both those people before I even went to college. That's the thing, and I think, what you're, yeah, well, I think you're right. You really don't need college to say like, this is what I want to do. But I think college helped clarify things for me because I still at that time in high school when I was interested in Trump and Scott Adams, I was still also interested in film. I was interested in writing a bit in some ways. Journalism. I can't believe I forgot about it. Journalism was the other thing I was interested in going into. So to clarify, three things I was interested in basically before I made my final decision: journalism, filmmaking, and marketing. And journalism I was interested in before college, and partially because I'm so frustrated with all the fake news, bias, slanted media we have today. I want to, maybe idealistically like change that, and make news real again, or at least just, because I thought it'd be fun to go around the world, report on stuff, meet new people, and explore things and see things that normal people just don't get to see, and be at historic events. I mean, that'd be a cool thing, I thought. But I found out through college, actually, the process of writing, a news story, which was very helpful, but it's probably something you could learn online because it's very simple. You have to put a lead, your body of, your filler stuff, and then you end it. And they teach you the AP style and the formatting like that, but you can always learn it outside of school. Was it nice having a classroom? Yes, because you had a teacher there who was an expert. He himself was a journalist and writes news stories every day, so that is helpful to have. But you can probably find all this stuff on Khan Academy and whatnot or other sources. But it was a good place to understand that. Now you could also take that step further and work for your local university newspaper and try out actual journalism. And that was the one cool thing about the class, was that I had to go out and interview people and report on events and actually have to do journalism, something that people at CNN don't really know how to do. So I got to experience that, which is a good thing. Now, back onto the sort of idea of, do you need college for all of this? I will say, like a major like journalism, you do not need a college degree to become a journalist. I will say that with full confidence. If you know how to write in an organized, clear, straightforward manner, you do just fine. You could go work for probably anything and get a job if you're convincing enough to them. If you want to do something like filmmaking, you can probably figure that off on your own, because they don't teach you much in those film classes. They teach you the bare basics, and it's your creative freedom there on out. It's really up to you to make the good film. Marketing, that's something that probably might need some university advice, but I've learned stuff from Scott Adams that I don't think I learned anywhere else. He's a very experienced guy. He's done this, before. He's got a economics degree from Berkeley, but he's, through experience, learned a lot of things, and so he teaches people that. But degrees like medical or lawyer, you'd have to go to college for that. There's no other way you're going to really get a job or really know that area without that. Anything to do with sciences, you got to go to college. But anything that's sort of you can figure out on your own, like journalism, for example, you really don't need you don't need to go to college.
Well, see, the thing is, like back in the day, like people would not expect you to have a college degree to get those careers. But now the problem is, you got a lot of companies. It's like, oh, because they have so many of these applicants. Oh, well, we need to go and have you have this degree over here
Yeah.
because everyone else has this degree, and that's the problem. If people stop getting degrees in things like journalism, then you would have less people wanting degrees in journalism. Like, and that's because the human resources departments, they go and specifically look for that. And that's something that I have a problem with because it's like throwing away people who might be even better at the job just because they don't have the piece of paper.
Yeah.
And this is like sort of a ingrained cultural issue within, at least the modern America. Because like, how's that necessarily better if someone has a college degree in journalism than someone who doesn't have a college degree? Like, if you had more experience, I'd take that over anything because, like, how
Yeah.
you were going for marketing. How much like stuff do you think that you really learned about marketing since you went to college?
Well, to be clear as a disclaimer, I've only taken one marketing class, so and that really didn't teach me much of anything. I'm going to be perfectly honest. Like I learned pretty much nothing in that, except you learn a lot of terms that they use in marketing, but I've already forgotten most of them, and some of them I will remember, like target market, which kind of self-explanatory. But you learn just some like basic idea, like companies use. They don't sell you their products, they sell you their values, they sell you their experience. It's about the Apple experience, not the iPhone, stuff like that. But you can. I knew that stuff going into the class because I was interested in that stuff and I was figuring that stuff out kind of on my own and through other stuff I've read. But marketing is one of those things that you may need. Really the thing about college is it's all about getting that piece of paper at the end, because that piece of paper is a key to the door into a job. And that's the problem with our system. It's one of those things that you got, it's going to take a slow time to change, but there's many jobs, like you said, that they will not consider you because they don't see you have a degree. And I understand why employers do that, but we have to somehow change that mentality, because like a lot of jobs, all you need is that piece of paper. They may not even look at your grades. They're not going to look at they may not even look at what university you went to. But I would think like if they saw like Penn State or something, it's going to raise their eyebrows and be like, oh, I went there too, or oh, that's a pretty good school. It's Penn State. And they might consider you more. So I'm not going to deny that going to Penn State or Harvard or anything like that's going to give you an edge in getting a job. Of course it will. But can we change that? That's basically our question here is, how do we change that, and can we change that? Because I see the future going in education generally just going online. I think a lot of basic classes you're going to be able to do online, and you may just have to take like a SAT or some sort of test that will prove you have those skills to get into some colleges. And once you get into college, there's probably a lot of classes you can take online. Like I took basically a pre-journalism class. It taught you basically English and grammatical stuff, and that was all done online. Easy class, and I didn't need a classroom for that. Like even my journalism class, I technically do not need to go to the classroom for that. We learned everything outside the classroom and came in the class to write stories and to talk to our professor, but we didn't really learn anything in class. We had some discussions, but that's it. So a lot of these classes can be done just online. I think the future of the university is most things like BS, what's it called, Gen Eds are going to be online, and you're going to probably just have to go into classes for labs and some more major-oriented courses.
Well, yeah, and I feel that like you mentioned earlier, lawyers and engineers, I feel that those will always need college because they're more technically oriented until we get like to the day that we can like have a free college that's like taught by robots or something like that. But at that point, we probably won't even have these jobs. But like if you're taking a degree that's like doesn't have like a legit like bar exam or like your scientist, something like that, like a required examination, then you probably really don't need to go to college for it for most cases. And like especially these days, you've got the computer, you have startups. Like at least for journalism, you can probably join some small journalism companies, some small like news website.
Yeah.
They probably would just be happy to go and have you like just go and work for them for a few months, see if this is what you want to do, and then if you really want to go to college, get that piece of paper, then go ahead. But like before I went to college, I volunteered for 2 years at a museum that they called it an internship. It was kind of like volunteer, but we did do like learn a lot about what they do on the day to day, and like we made our own exhibit, and I did interviews with firefighters.
Hmm.
And during my time there, like before then, I was really into history and I wanted to go into history major, but that showed me, hey, this life kind of sucks. And like it really kind of was an eye opener. And that's the thing most people need to realize too, because I realize is like these guys really don't make that much money.
Yeah. That's
Like
what I learned through journalism.
that's like they don't tell people how much like what that means. Like, oh, you only make this much money. I think before you go to college, they should be required to go and say, hey, here's what the average, something close to your major makes in the field. And now, yeah, that'd be hard to go and do for like cutting edge degrees for like I don't know, like Bitcoin maker or whatever the heck it is, like Bitcoin operator, like like AI scientists or something like that. But for most degrees, for like a good portion of degrees, they've had you have the data over there, and they should be required to go and tell you this is what you'll need. This is what you'll probably make starting out. Like maybe even if the school has the statistics, and they should be required to go and collect them, and most of them do. How much the person who graduated from your school with that degree makes.
Yeah.
And that should be definitely part of the discussion before you go into there, and they should be required to go and do that before you even get your student loans. Like, if you don't need student loans because you're rich, whatever, spend your money because it's not going to really affect you anyways. But like, especially for poor people, like this is really terrible to them. Like, poor parents, they have
Yeah.
to go like when they do like those cosign on those loans and the students can't pay for it. Then guess what? They're going to go after the parents, and if they're poor, they're going to end up taking the house if they can't afford to go and pay for it, and that's not right. And college too, it's like walking through a minefield because there's so many ways you can end up like not graduating with a degree. Like, you could get pregnant, you could get someone else pregnant, you could end up like getting, depressed and just dropping out. You could end up dying by falling down like a staircase, potentially. You could die from like there's just so many things, and like you could end up getting into drugs and dropping out. And this isn't just like a couple of things. Like I've known a bunch of people who dropped out of college. You might just not have the will to do it, and
Yeah.
that's another risk too, because it's not guaranteed that you're going to get that degree. You're paying that money, but you won't necessarily have anything to show for it. And I feel that there should be like some sort of company should offer like insurance on that. But that'd probably be insanely expensive in and of itself. But like it would save so many people's ass because they just don't graduate with a degree because it's a 4-year commitment. And some people, life happens. Some people might end up not being able to go and graduate on time. Maybe their parents end up getting sick and they have to take care of them.
Yeah.
Like this is a legitimate issue. And I've known people with that. And then once that happens, if you don't get the degree, then all that potential money, even if like it's only $40,000 a year, versus skills because you wasted that time partying and drinking or whatever, and even like you've been that major for 2 years, but you only took one class.
I've been for
Like
1 year.
if you were to like graduate right now, like if you had to go and check out of college, do you think you'd be prepared to make it in the real world? Like, do you think that one class really taught you enough to go and like do your own thing if worse comes to worse?
I think I could survive, and I think I could learn things quickly, but I'd be a little scared. Not to be honest. Like, I'd probably be a little worried going out there now, because I have a lot more business classes and marketing classes I still have to take to complete my degree. But the one thing I'll say, like that you mentioned earlier, is that you talked about networking and you wish you'd done more of it, and I'm starting to think the same thing now. I got to start doing that because that's the one big thing that is a positive of college is that networking, because you can meet a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds that can have a lot of freaking money and a lot that they want to do, and you can get some really killer jobs just by happening to know the right guy and being friends with the right guy, and who knows where that can take you. The one thing I'll say is don't waste any opportunity. If there's an opportunity, take it. Just why not? See what happens. See where it goes. Because there's so many things can happen at college. There's so many events, so many companies coming there, so many conferences, so many things you can do. That's really you got to take advantage of. But I'm trying to think of any other things I want to say. Online colleges or
Oh, and
online. What was that?
I just thought of something too. And like this is another issue. Like a lot of people, they don't even end up graduating on time. So like when you're
Yeah,
dealing with these finances, I know like most people, like I, technically graduated like a semester later, but it was a summer semester, so it's pretty much when I should have. But still, and I had a lot of AP courses too. Like
yeah.
if I would have like done my stuff right and took more classes, I probably could have graduated early. But I wanted to have the college experience, which honestly, eh. But like that's a major thing. I know a lot of people, they end up graduating late, and they kind of like keep forcing you to go and take more and more gen eds in these classes. Like you need to go and take this like seminar on how not to rate people in college, and that costs money. And students are like, oh yeah, this is a great thing. The college's like, oh yes, it's a great thing, ka-ching, ka-ching,
Yeah.
because
Yep.
we'll end up having to go and take more courses. Like you should at least be taking like 15 credits a semester, like bare minimum. And that was what I generally did, and
What?
I was able to go and do that. I probably could have taken less if I really wanted to, but I didn't. I always took like 15 until like my senior year, and
How
I
many
know some
classes is that? Is 15 credits?
it's five, I believe. Yeah,
Yeah,
five,
I
three.
was taking for my first 2 years 4 classes on average, and I took 5 classes I think last year and or last. I think I started taking 5 classes my sophomore year, but you know, it's also because you're mentioning like AP classes. I only had one AP class that qualified, and so I didn't have to take a poli sci class. But I had to go in the summer session for my freshman year before I even technically started my freshman year. But summer session to actually just get in the main campus, and I did that. So I'd take 2 classes then. And then my first and second semester of freshman year, I took 4 classes each semester. Then sophomore year, I took, I believe, 5 classes the first semester and 5 the next. Uh, and I'm right on track to graduate senior year with, I think if I do 5 classes each semester or 4, I forget, I will, graduate, within, 4 years plus a summer session. With my last semester, I think I only have to do like 3 classes. So, it's not really I'm glad you brought that up. It's not really a 4 year college, experience or degree anymore. You usually have to take 4 years plus a semester or even 5 years, depending on your major. And to be honest, grad school I think is kind of stupid unless you have some sort of like major that requires it. And if your company will pay for it, go for it. But I'm gonna be done with school. I don't even want to go back after probably my 4 years. But I would say that these gen ed classes that have basically eaten up my freshman year are the stupidest thing in the world. You don't need to take any science gen eds. You don't need to take any of these gen eds really, unless you're testing out classes like I did, or unless I actually that's the only reason I can think of is if you really still need to test out some classes. And I don't even think they're the best way is to do those. But gen eds I think should be gotten rid of. I like how you can kind of tailor them to your major and they're kind of flexible, but they're still pretty stupid. They're just a way to make money because that's all these universities want more is money, 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 money. And
Oh,
the one thing I would like to do is like we talked about before in offhand conversations is having kind of like a summer camp where you can test out all kinds of things and maybe like little mini sessions. Like every day you go to like a session on you go 5 sessions on 5 different things and see if you might be interested. This whole idea of you having to take classes, these full-on classes for a semester, is really you find out pretty quickly if you enjoy the class or not. So it's just a waste of time and money.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea too. Like you mentioned with the summer courses, like if you don't know like exactly what you want to do, because I mean I knew what I pretty much want to go and do from the time I started, but a lot of people aren't like that,
Yep.
and that would be good to go and have just like it might only be for like like 8 weeks or however long, like 4 weeks, but like
Yeah.
you do a different sort of area every week, and it's not even for a grade. And then that brings up another question, like another thing too, because like you gotta consider this, like even if you don't fail a class, if you end up doing like shitty on it, in some cases you can't, like you have to get a certain grade in that
Yeah.
class to go and like continue on with your major, which I think is bullshit. I think most like classes in colleges should be either pass or fail, to be honest with you, because like it's either you know the material or you don't. Like it,
Yeah. I kind of
like this
disagree
is
with
coming from
that.
someone who graduated like very like on in like top of the class almost. That was like the top 10%, and that's my opinion because like, and I thought it was like easy, like most of the college classes. So like it should
What?
either be pass or fail.
See,
Do
I
you
didn't
know this?
find most classes easy at all. Even my gen
Like
eds, I haven't found easy at all.
do you know the stuff or don't you? It should be that simple. Like if you don't know the stuff, then you should go and take it again. Which, and that's another thing too, because like they'll have it so that oh you got a B, but you need like a B plus to get into like for this class for your major, and they have to go and retake the whole class over that. And another thing too is like
That's pretty stupid.
your college credits. Some classes may only be offered in the fall or the spring, and that's a
Yeah.
huge issue. That could easily extend it. Like you could have all the classes that you need to graduate, but like except for one, and then because that one class is held in like the spring and you weren't able to go and take it last spring, then you have to go like another 2 semesters almost. Stuff like that can easily add up, and then if you have to go and retake a class, if it's one of the ones that only comes once a year, then you're screwed for another year having to go and wait for that class. And then if you graduate with less than a 3.0, that's going to be, I mean, you're going to do a lot of talking because people look down on that. And like, good luck getting to grad school if you graduate with less than a 3.0. But, many colleges let you go and retake the classes anyways, and which is just more of your money going down the drain. Like, they should either just pass you or fail you, I think, because then you won't have these like things where, you can't,
Mm.
you have to go and retake a class, even though you knew the stuff, you just didn't know it as well
Well
as they
enough.
want you to go and know it. And, at which point they should just fail you. Like, it's
Yeah,
either,
I
I don't know.
agree. I agree with that to an extent because I understand where you're coming from. Because some of these majors, some of these things are stupid. Where it's like you have to have this like insanely high grade, to get in. Even though like if you have a B plus, or even an A minus, you're still pretty good, but not good enough for us. That I understand that, but I wouldn't get rid of the system. I'd still have it the way it is, where it's A B C D E F, and C's passing and whatnot, because I think you still need to award people that do better. And I think those people that work really hard to get A's, you know, should be awarded more than the people that slack off and just manage to pass with a C. But that doesn't mean award them in the sense of they get into these special things or the things for their major, but other people don't, even though they know it almost just as well. Because I've been in that boat many times and I know that feeling. But what I would say is you do have to get rid of those silly requirements for some stuff. Because I'll give you a perfect example that pissed me off at the school I go to is that they had a credit range where you could get into the business school. So if those who don't know about credits, that's you get credits for the classes you take. And to get into the business school, you had to have within, let's say, 20 and 30 credits. I'm just shooting arbitrary numbers. And I was over that. And so I couldn't get into the business school. And the reason that happened is because I was spending the first year and a half basically trying to get my stuff, crap together and figure out what I want to do. And by the time I figured it out, it's up, the door's closed, you can't come in, even though you've already paid 35 grand a year. Yeah, you can't get into the business school. Sorry. Well, what's the freaking point of going here if I can't you do it? It's that sort of stuff is stupid. You're not awarding success. Oh, I'm sorry. I tried too hard and got too many credits. Ooh, I'm sorry. It's one of those things. Just you would think they'd want me to do because they'd probably get more money out of me. So it's one of those things I don't understand. But Those sort of things need to be straightened out with colleges, because that just, it comes back to that idea of awarding mediocrity and punishing success, and that sort of crap just pisses me off.
Yeah, they should definitely not go and like punish someone for trying different things. Now, like there's a certain extent to that. Like if you're there for like 4 years,
Yeah,
like
of course.
you still don't know what you're doing. Like
Yeah.
I think what they should do is have a summer camp thing. Like either you go in there and you declare your major on entrance, or you have that summer class,
Yes.
that summer camp, and then you declare it after the summer camp, because that way you'll go and spend your time the most efficient manner. And I think that we need a different accreditation body that'll go and work on making college cost effective, so that like, if you're going to spend 4 years here, you're going to be spending 4 years like learning shit that matters, versus most people just like learning stuff that really doesn't matter all that well.
Yeah.
Like if you're taking some like all the like I was taking like half the courses I averaged it out. It's like half the courses that I took in a given semester weren't even related to my major like entirely.
Yeah.
And that's ridiculous. Like that needs to stop.
Agreed.
Like if I would have this accreditation body come out and it's like, okay, here's how much a college costs. Like, and I guess you'd have to do this by like major, or at least by like like school of majors. So like computer science or whatever would be one school, and like I guess traditional sciences or like chemistry or biology or whatever would be like different things. And it would go and see the average salary of someone within this school, within like this college, within your university would be taking like they'd be making this much money. Here's the average cost of the universities, university education. Here's like the difference, and it would grade you based on that and how long it takes you to complete the major. And they'd reward you for graduating people earlier than 4 years. If they graduate more on average close to 3 years, that would be, even if it's like more expensive, they go and factor in the average cost, like your average salary, and that would be subtracted from the cost of that major, or cost of going to college, and that would be factored into it. So would like the amount of people who don't have jobs after 6 months of graduating, and then the university would get a grade based on this. So, and that would be made publicly available, so that when you look for colleges, like, or when your parents look, because that's usually who matters, they can go and say, hey, this college is rated A in efficiency. Oh, hey, this college is only rated like a B minus. I don't know about that. Stuff like that, so that you know which colleges are better. And now, like, if you have some crazy artsy colleges, they do their own thing, and they, people can go there. But then banks and other online, like other lenders, could go and make the decision on whether or not, they want to go and lend to someone going for a degree rated at like X, at like a B or like a C efficiency, because that shows a bad return on investment. Because honestly, but they'd have to first get rid of the laws, like basically shielding banks from making bad decisions in terms of student lending. And they'd have to go and limit or alter like the federal student lendings so that they follow this, or they just get rid of it. So that like either they just get rid of it, or they like have to follow that thing. If it's like they will refuse to lend it to like a school rated as C or lower based on efficiency rating. And I think this could be done. You just have auditors go into the school, and they go and calculate these statistics, and they would go and give the school the grade. And that's how it would be done. Like, schools already have accreditations, but this is like the accreditation that really matters, because pretty much all schools are accredited, with like one or two of the regional bodies, or three. I don't even know how much they got these days. But this would be the one that would make the most sense for students to look at. Like, because most people, they don't like really give a shit. It goes to college. It's either like a big name college. Either I went to that college, or it's just a college.
Yeah.
Like, most people really don't look too much into the accreditation unless it's like some crazy major. But like with this, the people who are going to college would look into that, and they would go and see, this is what's being rated on, not just on how much diversity courses they have, or how much like transgender bathrooms per square foot of the school there are. No, this would be something meaningful, and this would be very useful for kids. And like kind of one more thing I kind of thought about too is like, colleges, they have very little reason to go and lower their price, because like they kind of are in league with these like social justice students, into making the education cost more money. Like when you think about it, like, the colleges are probably all for like having students like have these transgender bathrooms because that means they can raise the price of tuition. They can justify it by saying they have these transgender bathrooms and all this and all that and these diversity people. And before you know it, it costs an extra $1,000 to get a university degree from someplace, even though like less than like 1% of students would actually feel that these are really necessary for their daily function. Like, how many people really use these, like, the super awesome gyms they have at colleges? Yeah, they're nice, but, and it really hurts, like, veterans and students who are non-traditional, like, parents. They're not going to go to the gyms. They're not going to go to, like, the diversity place. They just want to get in and get out. Those ones are the people who get really left behind, and I feel really bad for them because no one's speaking up for them. The only people who are speaking up are student activists who want to go and, like, make you pay for tampons in the men's bathroom in these colleges, but then they want to go and bitch about, oh, college is so expensive. Well, I wonder why. You keep having these ancillary products that you're forcing on the college. Of course they're going to be expensive. Of course, they're going to be just unnecessary and in general a bad thing for students to deal with. Of course it's going to be more expensive when you have all these rising costs and there's no reason to eliminate it, especially at like a big name university, because there's a whole line of people who didn't get in who want to come in and they'll keep paying it. And then you have like especially international students, and there's like a lot of them who are just begging to go to these universities, to the point that some universities it's like over 10% of the students are like international students, which to the left is like, oh, that's so progressive. But when you think about it, it's bad because our taxpayer money is going to fund these universities. And, a good portion of them might not even come from the state, let alone this country. That's not serving the public who are paying for it. It should, if it's going to be a public university, they should go and pay. It should serve the public who paid the taxes into it, at least in my opinion. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And then the problem with the money, too, like with all these universities, made me think it was like, because you hear all these Bernie bros arguing for, college education's a human right. It should be free and available to all. It's like, well, that sounds nice, but let's look at the implications of that. If you want colleges fully funded by the government, I mean, of course your taxes are going to go up, obviously, but the problem we already have with colleges is they get so much money and they already are inefficient. They're spending their money inefficiently. They're doing everything inefficiently. They're not efficient in any means possible. If you just guarantee them money every year from the government, everything paid for, well, they're going to have no incentive to be more efficient. They're still going to get the money. And that's the problem with throwing more money at it, is that it's not going to fix that. And, of course, the foreign international students is a whole nother deal with that, because, like, Penn State, for example, has a lot of international students. But, and they're all generally pretty good people and all that, but, it's...
Except for the one that, like, threatened...
yeah.
The one lady.
Yeah, the one that threatened Laura Luber, those DMs and whatnot. If we're going to hold the left to their standard and their hate speech standards, then he should be deported, to be honest. But that's another episode in of itself. But, I mean, a lot of changes to fix this whole college thing really come down to, from what I've noticed through our discussion, is getting people who don't know what they want to do to have an idea of what they want to do before they get into college, through summer camps, through these sort of college fairs, whatever you want to call them, where you can A/B test your interests and explore and find maybe stuff you didn't think you like that you like. Like, I didn't know I didn't know I was going to go into marketing. I didn't even know I liked it until much later. So do that. Colleges, you get rid of their stupid courses like gen eds and their, courses that are a waste of time and money, and put more of it online. That might help lower the cost. Of course, they can just raise the price of tuition, and take advantage of things at college. But there's other options like technical schools. But I honestly don't know how well of a job you're going to get with that, at least in the current year. But we'll see.
real quick, here's something I just thought about too. Like, what
Yeah.
about so that like if a college costs more than like X amount of money per semester, like it'll decrease the amount of amount of government funding that goes to the college. If it's like cost incredibly inefficient, like Penn
Yeah.
State, $10,000 a semester. If it costs more than like $8,000 for every like 1,000 more dollars or every X percentage increase over the average cost of a college, there'll be a decrease in government funding, so that
Mm.
it'll become it'll be less of a public school at that point. Like, I know Penn State's in a weird situation, so that might not be the
Yeah.
best example, but there's many schools out there that they're just so expensive. And another thing too is like I think they should be required to go and take more transfer credits from like a community college. Like a lot of people are like, oh, like a lot of colleges they go and like limit how much you can go and get from there, which I think is BS. If the community college is accredited with whatever accreditation things that they have, they should be required to go and take those courses as is. You know,
Yeah.
up to like 2 years or whatever, so they can do. But if it's a public university, I don't think it shouldn't be about making money. So they should take as many as they can. Like, does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing that's like annoying with public university. They technically have no incentive to make a profit, but at the same time they kind of do. Because like President Barron of Penn State, his salary keeps going up.
Yeah.
He wants more of that.
He's getting paid like 9/10 of $1 million, like almost like 90, like it's 900 some odd $1,000 he's getting every year. Like
Yeah.
that's pretty big.
Yeah.
Does
He's
he
one of
really
the top paid in the whole country.
does he really need that money? And
No.
like what are you really getting out of Penn State? Because at least for the community college, you have smaller class sizes. Like at Penn State, good luck if the professor even knows your name. You have classes with like 900 kids in there. What are you really getting out of that, and why does it cost you so much? If anything, going to a big university should be cheaper because you get less access to professors,
Yeah.
and they have it's cheaper for them. It should be cheaper on them on average because it's like more cost effective. You just have a bigger building, and then you can have like 900 class sizes, and then like all that money goes, and like all those people are paying that money for it. So like it should be more efficient the more people there are, but instead it's the opposite. Like Penn State, the main campus is very like like $10,000 plus, but then they have these branch campuses with smaller class sizes, which are much less expensive, and you might be able to get to know like the students and the teachers on a first name basis.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, that's generally kind of my thoughts on it. With colleges, it's very important for them to. I think if we want the college thing to work, we need to go and like first the companies need to go and change. Well, first the federal government needs to go and change and stop giving out these student loans to just everybody. They should go and factor in the the usefulness of the college major and how much it costs to retain that major. Then the companies like these human resources in general, they need to have a major reform because they're a major reason why like companies like especially big like Fortune 500 companies look into like hiring only the best.
Yeah.
Like only people college degrees.
Yeah.
Like not even the best because you have a lot of people who'd probably be just as good if not better, and it'd be cheaper without college degrees. So that's another issue. And then in general, like colleges need to go and focus on cutting costs and cutting the amount of time you have to go to college. Because honestly, you really don't need to go to 4 years for most majors. Like you could probably get away with like 2 of them, at least in my case, because half my courses weren't even related to my major.
Yeah.
So and another thing too, and like the final thing is like you as an individual need. If you're under, if you just graduated high school, you're still in high school, figure out what you want to do before you go to college, because if not, it's going to be a very expensive journey. And, if you're paying for it yourself, which, some people are, some people aren't. I paid for it, mostly myself. I had some help from my father in terms of like GI benefits. But like, if I would have been paying for this, if I didn't have any skin in the game, I would be much more willing to go and explore the whole college experience. But for me, I still have like a good 30 some odd grand in college student debt. That's incredibly, just a large amount of money. And I know people with much, much more than me. And so that's not even saying that much. But, if you're a college student, you need to go and like if you're looking into going to college, sure, you know what you want to do. Try to go and get like a shadow or like an internship or something before you end up going to college, so you at least have an idea. I think that colleges should, you know, either colleges or high schools or something should go and have like these little summer camps where you learn what the heck these like majors slash jobs entail. So you know if you want to get into it, because once you're in college, you know every second that you sit in that classroom, that's money. That's money racking up and interest being earned. And then by God, if you do go to college, actually go to your classes because you're paying good money for that.
Yeah. Yeah, don't
You know,
skip classes. You're literally just wasting money. It's really stupid. I've never skipped a class except for like, exceptions here and there. But like, go to class, work hard, get good grades, don't repeat classes, don't fail classes, get a good GPA. You'll still have fun, still have friends. You can still do that. It's just all a balance. As long as you can, it's like everything in life. It's just a balance, and you gotta find that balance. But school is always number one.
yeah, but well, yeah, but like I don't know, as long as you get above a 3.0, you'll probably fine. Better off just like networking. To be honest, just make sure you don't fail,
Yeah.
or like get out of college for whatever reason. Because once you leave college, you don't get your degree. You're screwed, and your parents are screwed probably if you're gonna take out these loans in their name. And by God, do your research before you get to college if you can. If you're still a high school student, if you don't do that now, it's going to bite you in the ass later, once you graduate or don't graduate, once you're done the college experience and you end up staying there for 5 years, strive for 4. Even better, like strive for less than 4. I know some people who've been able to do it. Take as many classes as you can without like having your GPA suffer significantly.
Mm.
Because, a lot of colleges, they won't make you go and pay per like credit, like at least universities, unless it's during the summer semester, you're taking less than a certain amount. Like, I know Penn State's like you can take up to 20 courses if you're taking it during the regular semester for the same price. So if you're taking like 12 and a half versus you're taking 20, it's the same cost minus books and whatnot. So, definitely if you can, if you have the skill and the willpower, do that. And that'll help you with this like leagues, and you'll thank me later. So yeah, just be smart about college. And the smartest thing is to go and research if you really need it, because there's a whole host of other jobs out there that don't require college degrees, and there's always technical schools and a whole host of other jobs. And I think there's some videos showing that like a plumber and like a lawyer. The plumber will make more money than the lawyer up until like the lawyer turns 40. So, do you want to go and really wait to start your life until you're 40 years old? Like, is money that important to you? Just consider those things, because life's, pretty difficult.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't have any final words to say, so I think that's a good place to end it.
All right. Yeah. See you guys for the next installment of the Foundry.
Bye.
Bye.